Welcome back to Burning the Ships Podcast Solo Show, the show where we go all in on business, health, family, and life without looking back. These solo episodes are designed to give you tactical strategies you can apply right away, followed by a mindset principle to help you anchor those strategies and execute with confidence. From time to time, I'll also bring in experts to dive deeper into specific areas so you're getting actionable tools and perspectives from all angles. This show is also brought to you by 608B Capital. At 608B, we provide short-term real estate loans for investors who need speed, certainty, and flexibility to scale their business. Whether it's a fix and flip or a buy and hold, our team understands the borrower side because we've been there and continue to be there ourselves. To learn more, visit 608bcapital.com. Now let's dive in. Welcome to Burning the Ships Weekly Ramble, and I'm your host, Jason Seward. And today I am going to ramble about some new directions that we're going with the podcast, specifically on these solo episodes. So for about a year and a half now, almost coming up on 2 years, every week I've been putting out what we call Weekly Ramble, which is what y'all are listening to right now. Solo episode with me. Early on, it was a couple episodes with me and Bill. I've had my kids in here joining me a couple times as well. But mostly it's just me talking about a wide range of topics, from business stuff to mostly mindset stuff, to books I read, to quotes I've heard, to ideas I have, and things like that. And it's been fun for me because it just kind of gives me an outlet or a platform to just ramble, right? And that's what I do best. But as time goes on, we've run into a couple challenges with that. Me, particularly because the biggest one is when I do these rambles, they are very obviously random because none of them kind of like piggyback on the last one. I'm not building towards anything, like you got to see the episode 3 weeks ago and then 2 weeks ago and a week ago to kind of understand what I'm talking about in this episode. None of them are like that. So they're very random, but the way I've always done them, and it was fine early on, but now that our business at 608B Capital has scaled and grown so quickly, my hands are tied into that business quite a bit more. A lot of tasks, a lot of things I have to knock out every single day. So my mind is primarily focused on that without much freedom to think about this podcast, if you will. And so I'll kind of give you how a typical weekly ramble comes about. I might, in the past, I might block off time to do these weekly rambles, and I'll think of ideas and nuggets and stuff like that I might want to cover. Or I'll find inspiration somewhere and use that as my next idea or topic I cover. But a lot of those ideas came from having the space, the time to not, to kind of let my mind wander a little bit, right? Well, now that we're so busy in the business, I've got to be laser focused on specific things within that business. So when I'm applying that laser focus, my mind's not wandering as much, and I'm really not thinking about like my next weekly ramble topic. So the last couple months, it really has evolved to like literally if I see a 15-minute block of time where I don't have anything going on, and then I get like, all right, I just read this book. Let me do a quick ramble on that book. It's completely unprepared. Just literally, which I kind of do anyway, but literally on the fly, in the moment, turn the camera on, record, and then we produce it. Well, the problem with that is I'm not going to always have an idea, and I'm not going to always be inspired. So week to week, we try to bank episodes, so I'll always have an episode ready to go for the next Thursday, right? Well, recently I've found myself, end of the week, and I don't have anything recorded for the next Thursday, and I'm scrambling, and I've got to now, instead of freely being inspired and when I have time to record it, now I'm trying to carve out time out of an already busy day to get this 20-30 minute recording done so it can go out the next week. So in my opinion, I haven't gotten any feedback stating this, but I'm pretty aware of how it comes off, is I am as unprepared as ever for these weekly rambles. So It doesn't, for me personally, and if you've been watching, you may not have, or listening, you may not have noticed this at all or any changes. But me personally, I feel, you know, a responsibility to put out some good quality and some good thoughts. And if I'm doing it in a rush sense, it hasn't been working. So the importance of, and hold on one second, because I have started rambling and this has been so fresh in my mind. I just want to share it with everybody. I completely forgot my most favorite segment of this podcast, which is JJ's joke of the week. So I apologize for that, JJ, but now I'm going to turn it over to my man, JJ, for JJ's joke of the week. Take it away, buddy.
What do you call an alligator in a vest? An investigator.
All right, dude. Another great joke. You keep them coming. I appreciate it. This is a lot of fun. I'm glad we now have him telling the jokes rather than me telling his jokes, because when his little voice pops up, I wish y'all could have seen him here recording them, because I was standing off to the side and he had, I don't know, 30 or 40, 50 jokes maybe in front of him, and he would read them and he'd look over. For those that are watching, I'll do what he was doing, but every time he'd read the joke, he'd laugh at it and he'd look at me to make sure like I gave him the thumbs up for approval. So that was fun, and now we actually have his voice on every episode, so that's pretty cool. Anyway, so where we are going to pivot, and I'm kind of going to go over like the new direction and then actually the cadence of the episodes coming up. They're going to be a lot more structured. And what I mean by that, the title of the solo episodes has always been Weekly Ramble. Why? Because I ramble about everything. I never know when I hit record where I'm going to go with a particular topic. So a couple of the topics I did recently were based off of blogs that I've written. So that was a little more structured. I just kind of followed the outline of the blog and then, highlighted a couple things I put in that. But for the most part, it's just boom, spitballing from my brain in the moment. And, that I don't mind doing that, but sometimes it can be confusing and I cover a lot of ground and sometimes it doesn't make sense to folks listening. To me, it makes perfect sense, but I'm the one saying it. So what we're going to do now is probably going to rename it. I'm still working on that. I mean, it'll be burning the ships, but it won't be Weekly Ramble anymore. It's going to be, something a little bit different there. Still come out every Thursday at 4 o'clock. And what we will be doing now is very specific tactical episodes on specific topics. Primarily in real estate and in business, but it's not going to always be that. It might be some fitness stuff. It might be all kinds of stuff. So what that will look like is there will be probably 15, 20 minutes of me. Like, I'll give an example. The first one I'm doing, I'll record it next week for the following week. But it will be on the topic of underwriting a single family home fix and flip, right? So I will literally go step by step our underwriting process. Now, it's not going to be the same as everybody, but everybody uses this pretty much the same metrics that they're looking at and how to analyze a deal. So I'll kind of walk through step by step how we do that. So who's that going to bring value to? Well, to bring value to anybody trying to learn how to get into the fix and flip game, it might give some nuggets to folks that are already doing it that they hadn't thought about, or maybe give them some insight into some different ways of analyzing deals and stuff like that. But it will be parked here in this podcast library and on YouTube for people to refer back to for forever, if they want to know how to analyze a single family deal. So that's just one example. Another topic might be explaining the BRRRR strategy from start to finish. So I will literally bullet point every single part of the strategy. And eventually, not too far from now, I will have like a second camera set up on a whiteboard where I will or maybe doing a screen share or something like that, more for the YouTube folks to actually see and have something they can put their eyes on and follow, right? Like a checklist or bullet points or a diagram or something like that. So that'll be the new, like, first 15, 20 minutes of the episode. I think that's going to provide a lot more hands-on value, or like tangible value that folks can take away, listen to, and try to apply it or share it with folks that they think would benefit from it. So there's that. Every topic I will tie in. I'll spend like the last 10 minutes of the episode tying in a mindset nugget or some type of mentality, psychological nugget that goes along or kind of ties into the topic I'm talking about. So, for example, if like right now I'm talking about, and I'm going to, like, I'll do this in this episode. So the first segment is me kind of talking about the new direction we're going. Not very tactical. It's just kind of informational, just telling you what the new plan is. But like a mindset topic, and I'm just thinking of this on the fly, but a mindset topic with that could be the importance of like being willing to pivot in business and life and podcasting and whatever the case may be. So I'll talk about all the kind of the mentality behind pivoting and changing direction, changing course, not digging your heels in the sand and saying I'm not going to do it any other way, right? So we'll get into that in a minute, but we'll have the tactical section, and then, like I said, at the end, about 10 minutes of me tying that into a mindset nugget. So another piece of this that will be forthcoming is, like, I am by no means an expert on enough stuff to do a solid tactical episode every single week for the next 10 years, right? So hopefully this podcast is around then and longer, right? But eventually I will run out of quality things, and I'll be regurgitating a lot of the same information. So the way to mitigate that and to kind of keep the momentum going with new topics, new ideas, is we have our guest episodes where our interview people every Sunday, right? That'll still remain the same. I've got some changes I'm working on with that, but for the most part, that's going to stay the same. But what I may do with these solo episodes is actually have guests come in that are experts in certain areas. So a couple that come to mind is, like, I've got so many people in my network that are tied to business, real estate, fitness, all these things. And I'll give an example. Let's say I'm bringing on Rafa Loza. So if you look back at earlier episodes, you'll see Rafa came on and we talked about kind of his story and stuff like that. But he talked a little bit about like what his expertise is, and that is the short-term rental, mid-term rental game. So he's built an empire within, that niche, and he's an expert in it. So I may have him come on, and the solo episode will be, me doing an introduction and then turning it over to Rafa without me asking questions. He'll have a presentation or wherever he wants to take it for about 20 minutes to talk about tactics within short-term rentals. Or I might have a CPA come on and talk about tax advice as we kind of wrap up and starting to tax plan for the year. Or I might have a fitness coach come on talking about building out a workout program or nutrition program or something like that. So they will take the reins and actually be the one recording on camera, and that will be the bulk of the podcast. And then what I'll do is record after, or once they do their topic, I will tie that in again to a mindset nugget. So let's say Rafa comes on and talks about, and I haven't even talked to Rafa about this, so if you're listening, Rafa, I'll be in touch. But I'm using you as an example. If he comes on and talks about short-term rental and like the pivots he's had to make and the challenges he's faced in the market the last 5-10 years with everything he's done, and how each time he was able to be creative, do a pivot, creatively think, and get his business still moving forward, even in the face of adversity or changes in the market and stuff like that. So that mindset, if he talks about all that, then my mindset nugget could be around resilience, right? He's resilient enough to pivot and make the changes needed when the market changes and stuff like that. So I will finish the episode with about a 10-minute mindset nugget that ties into whatever our guest talked about. So I'm excited about that piece because I really think we can get some, a lot of my interview episodes, I get folks on. I'm really big on kind of hearing their story and the psychology behind the story, right? But very rarely, like if you look back at again Rafa or any of my other episodes where I have people that are experts in particular fields, 90% of the episode is me just talking about their family, their mindset, things like that, which is great. That's what I want to continue doing because that inspires folks. But a lot of these folks have really good expertise in their areas. Then again, that could be a wide range of topics. So I'm looking forward to building that out and kind of dialing that in how it looks from here. But I think what it will do, it will covering a couple of different things for me. It'll allow me to kind of plot things out and have them planned and time block for these topics that I'm going to talk about and have them a lot more structured. So that is going to reduce some chaos for me around these Weekly Ramble podcasts. Number two, I think with the guests that are coming on, it's going to be a great opportunity for them to get about 20, 30 minutes of them talking about what they're experts in, and they can use that for all their marketing, right? So they're going to be able to blast that out and share it with their audience, and kind of use it as a coaching tool or, something like that to show people like, here I am talking, here's some reels of me talking about what I do best and blah, blah, blah through the Burning the Ships platform. So I'm excited about the potential there as well. We will be making a couple other subtle changes. We've done the same intro forever. We've done the same outro forever. We're going to mix those up, change them up a little bit. We're going to, at the end of the day, being fully transparent, there's many reasons I do this podcast. A lot of them just selfish for me personally. I like talking to people. I'm curious, all those things. But another thing is, it is a good platform for us to promote our business, which is 608B Capital. Now, I don't want to every 5 minutes be talking about 608B Capital on this show, right? But there is no reason for me to, like in the intro and the outro, and then somewhere in the middle of the episode, having just a 15-second, 30-second kind of a sponsor shout out or an ad read or something like that about 608B Capital. So y'all will see more of that. It won't be long. It won't be boring. If you're not interested in anything we have going on with 608B Capital, fast forward through it and get on to the topic. But that's something else we're going to implement. So I'm very excited about this. I kind of reached a point, and I got to give a shout out to Josh Culler, who he does all of our podcast production and editing and getting it all out on all the platforms. If I had to do that on my own, it'd be terrible. I don't even know that it would happen. But I reached out to him and I said, man, I've got to cut back a little bit. And the only thing I can see to cut down on is just kind of eliminate these weekly rambles. And so I was kind of dead set on just doing one episode a week. It'd be the interview and no more weekly ramble, or maybe come in once a month and do a ramble. And he kind of, we worked through it, talked through it, and gave me this idea of kind of taking a new direction with it that I can be a little more structured with, so I can block it off, prep for it, and not just have it be so random. And a lot of times, like I said recently, last second, where I'm just pulling at the air to try to find a topic to talk about, right? So that's where we're going with this. Now, the mindset nugget, as I mentioned, I will talk about, that wasn't very tactical. That's just, again, giving you an idea of where we're going with it. And that'll be our first segment. And then we will transition over to the second segment, which will talk about a mindset nugget that ties into that. So now, as we get ready, before we start our new topic and the mindset nugget that kind of goes over and ties into what I was just talking about, and we're going to talk about pivoting today, I want to turn it over to our sponsor, 608B Capital. If you've been following this podcast for any time now, you have certainly heard us talk about 608B Capital. 608B Capital is our lending company that Bill Phillips and I launched about a little over 2 years ago. And we fund folks that are buying houses, fixing them up, and then ultimately selling them or refinancing them for longer term use. And we're the short term financing for that. So if you have anyone in your network or you yourself are into that business or interested in learning more, you can reach out to us by checking out our website, 608bcapital.com. We always have plenty of capital to lend, and we're excited to work with as many new people as possible. We also have an excellent referral program, so contact us for more information on that, and we can't wait to hear from you. All right, 608B Capital, folks. I'm a proud owner of that company, so just to be very fully transparent, if you weren't aware of the connection, that is my company. This podcast is not monetized in any other way other than 608B Capital being the sponsor and, covering what little bit of cost we have here. So with that, we're going to talk about the mindset nugget. Today, it's going to be about the importance of pivoting in life, in business, in podcasting. And I have learned over the years, I used to be probably in my early adult life, definitely back to being like a teenager and kid, but I would have ideas and once they set in my head, good luck changing them. Like I was very, very dogmatic with everything in my life. So when it came to everything, sports, my opinions on things, my politics, my religion, everything, I was extremely dogmatic on it, right? So if you had a differing opinion than me, or if I needed to make changes into how I was doing things or how I was presenting things, it was a very difficult task for me to make that change, right? A lot of ego involved, a lot of pride involved, and a lot of arrogance, right? And so as I've matured, I've learned that obviously that is not the best way to be. Some things, yeah, right? Like I I have I am stuck in concrete on a lot of ideas, right? And I won't change some of those ideas when it comes to, how, how I am as a husband, how I am as a father, things like that. But there are a lot of things in life, especially when it comes to business, and just how I think about different things that are going on in my life, that as I've matured, I've become very flexible. And I love this idea of not being married to an idea, right? So I am a lot more open to feedback, a lot more than ever. Like I welcome it, I crave it. Criticism, both good and bad, I'm open. I don't get my feelings hurt, rarely ever. And I take all of that and I try my best to apply it. And a lot of times that comes with pivots. And pivots is just simply a course direction change, like a course change. So with this podcast, for example, I was feeling a sense of pressure because I was having to get these episodes. I want to be consistent, right? I want to be consistently getting what I say I'm going to get out there, but I was feeling the pressure to do that as other pressures were mounting, and I wasn't putting out, in my opinion, a good enough quality. It's getting a little stale, getting a little redundant. I was talking about a lot of the same ideas and things like that. I didn't need anybody to give me that feedback. If they had, I would have accepted it. But I was very aware of where it was getting and kind of how I felt about it. So in the past, I would probably ignore those feelings or ignore those signs, saying, oh, this is how we're going to do it. It's how we've always done it. It's how we're going to keep doing it. Well, now, number one, I'm never going to say, we are always going to do it this way in anything, right? Because I've learned that I've done that before. I'll never, maybe I'll have my mind set up or set or made about a specific opinion or topic. And I might say, I'll never change my mind on this. And as time goes by, maybe I'm introduced to new ideas or new angles on it and I change my mind, right? So I've learned over time, I never am like concrete with very little things in my life, like I said, other than, the things that are core to me. But with this podcast, I kind of had this mindset of we're going to make this twice a week, every week. We're not going to miss a week. So that put pressure on me, right? The pressure was to actually perform and do that. Well, when I start forcing that and compromising quality and what I'm talking about, I know it's a problem. So I was aware of that, and that's where the pivot comes. So the first pivot for me with this was just going to be reduce it back to one episode a week. We're still going to keep rolling on, stay consistent with that, but just eliminate the weekly ramble. And the rambles don't typically perform, I mean, they perform from a download standpoint maybe half of what our interview episodes do. So our interview episodes do really well on all platforms, mostly like Apple and Spotify. But the ramble episodes, about half of that on average. So I just didn't see a need for it, right? And so the pivot was going to be just to eliminate it. Well, I had my mind set up. That's what I was going to do. I talked to Josh, talked to a couple other people, and it was like, all right, let me hear your feedback. And when I hear that feedback, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. I can carve out time and structure it better this way, and it's going to be a much better product. It's going to help more people. Not going to help everybody, but it will help more people. And I think when we start having the guests on here doing their expertise, it's going to help a lot of people, because I know a little about a lot of things, right? But there's some people that are just stone cold killers in their field of whatever it is. And so I want to get them on here to talk through that. And that's a pivot. So I had one direction in mind for a year and a half. I was able to swallow my pride and ego where I had said we're never going to not do it any differently, right? We're always going to do 2 a week. I've said that several times. Unless something crazy happens, we would do 2 episodes a week. Well, now here I am, having to dial that back a little bit and say, okay, that's not feasible. I probably overcommitted myself and overcommitted to everybody listening that I was going to be able to perform at that level at good quality. So I have to dial that back, realize that I made a mistake there. I shouldn't have overcommitted that, which it's not a big deal. Nobody cares, but I care. But realizing that, and then kind of swallowing my pride a little bit and saying, okay, we're going to scrap it. Oh, no, we're not going to scrap it because that's a good idea, Josh, or that's a good idea. Whoever else, a couple other people gave me some ideas. And now the pivot is, let's go in that direction. So it's going to be a whole new look and a whole new flow for this episode, but it's still going to be every Thursday, once a week, and then the interviews every Sunday, once a week. So pivoting can be applied to, business. I can talk a lot of things in business, but we've made several pivots, and I'll walk through a couple. Early on, Bill and I, when we joined up, when we were still working our corporate careers, when we joined up to start, ramping up and scaling up our portfolio, buying single family, small multifamily, I remember us doing the math over and over and over on like how many units we need to get to generate X amount of cash flow to replace our former income or our current income at the time, so that we could leave those careers. And we would math that out. All right, we can get to 200 units. 200 units will do it. That'll give us this much equity. Net worth will be this, blah, blah, blah. Well, then you start heading down that road. You get a little ways into it, and you're like, all right, man, we can kind of scale that quicker going into multifamily. So we pivoted, stopped messing with single family, started looking at and buying some small multifamily. And then we saw how quickly that could scale. And then we were like, all right, let's pivot again and put all of our eggs in the apartment syndication basket. So we started with kind of investing in other syndications just to learn it. We joined a mastermind that was focused on commercial real estate, Legacy Family. Y'all have heard me talk about them a million times. We joined that, started getting educated on everything syndication. And we did. I'm not going to say we're experts, but we know the syndication model frontwards and backwards right now. We know it. We learned it. We never bought a single syndication. And there was a lot of variables at play there. There were things when we started kind of leaning in heavy in that, which was late 22, early 23, interest rates were jacking up. A lot of variables, insurance costs were going up. A lot of things were going on in the commercial real estate market that kind of put a halt to what we were planning on doing. So we had to pivot again. What was the next pivot? And this was just a natural one because we had been lending our own money and making, good returns on that. So much so that we could see a scalable business there. So what do? Pivoted again after a few phone calls with who would turn out to be our mentor and consultant, Kelly Garrett and Angela Dunn, we realized that, okay, we don't really have to sacrifice a lot to make this pivot. We can try it, test the waters without a lot of risk and a lot of expense, just to make sure that, or just to see like if this was viable or not, or scalable for us. We knew it was scalable because we had the model laid out in front of us from another company, Rehab Wallet, and they again helped us build what we ultimately have built, but we just needed to test it out, see if it was for us. Well, it didn't take long. We pivoted all of our attention. So we went from, we're going to grow this small multifamily, single family portfolio to 200 units. Nope, scrap that. We're just going to do multifamily. Scrap that. We're going to syndicate multifamily. For a while there, we were looking at like setting up a kind of a wholesale operation. We're always flipping houses, so that's always going to be a part of it. But there were a lot of things we were kind of dipping our toes into. But then this lending world was kind of, our eyes were, again, naturally, because we were just lending our own money. So we were kind of seeing behind the scenes of how all that worked. And it created another pivot. So we pivoted again. And now we have landed on what we've landed on, which 608B Capital has absolutely blown up. We're 2 years plus into it. And, there will be future pivots. But right now, this is the thing. Now, within that business, we're making a lot of pivots, right? Every month, we're making some kind of tweak, maybe something that we thought we'd never do. We are now pivoting and starting to do it because we have the bandwidth or the scale to do it now. So there's a lot of things that we're constantly pivoting on. The folks that still carry that dogma and all of their opinions and their skill sets and their thoughts and all that stuff and they apply that to business, I believe, and not in all cases, but in general, that mentality of it's going to be this way or no way. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to make this thing work. That leads to a lot of failure in business, unfortunately, because people are not like you. It's okay to be fully committed and all in on an idea or a new strategy or something like that. But you've got to have that part of your brain that has the awareness enough to know when it's not working and some things get changed. So some people, a lot of people are guilty of all in means all in and nothing else thinks about anything else, right? That's good until it's not. And when it's not is when what you were dug in on is not working anymore. And now you can't pivot because you have mentally set up this barrier that won't allow you to change your mind or get off the track you're on and hop onto another train or another boat or another ship, if you will. So pivoting is vital, and not just the act of pivoting, the mindset of and the awareness of I'm probably going to need to pivot several times throughout the rest of my life. I might need to pivot in how I'm handling relationships. I might need to pivot in my diet, in my exercise routine. I've had to do some pivots here lately, some by choice and some by injuries or whatever the case may be. But I'm always having to pivot like my physical stuff, my workout routines and my diet. A lot of those pivots come when I just get off the rails and start eating everything I want. I got to repivot, go back to a healthy diet. So my life is full of pivots, and I embrace them. I welcome them. I used to not be that way. And if I had stayed that way, I wouldn't have found the level of success in certain areas of my life at the scale I have found it without changing my mind and my mindset around pivoting and all of that, and welcoming change into everything I'm doing. So with that, again, we're making a lot of pivots with this podcast. I've already gone over all of that. I challenge all of y'all to kind of look like, I forget who says it. I've heard somebody in my network says this a lot, but zooming out, right? So a lot of times we're in the picture. So just picture like a video of yourself going through your day or a screenshot, a snapshot of you in the moment. You're in the picture, right? So when you're in the picture, you can't really see everything around you. A lot of people get stuck in the picture. The ones that can zoom out, so you're still there, everything's still going on, but you're seeing it now from a 30,000 foot view, and you can apply the humility and all of that to what you see, and the awareness to say, that's not working. Oh, I see that threat over there in that corner that I didn't see when I was zoomed in to the picture. Or I see that opportunity over here in that corner that when I was in the picture, it wasn't even apparent to me because there were things in my way. So the art of zooming out and really taking inventory of everything around you, looking for opportunities, threats, weaknesses, was it the SWOT analysis? And it's easier to do a SWOT analysis of your situation. SWOT, by the way, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, SWOT. But it's easier to do that when you're zoomed way out, looking at everything from above, rather than being sitting right there in the middle of it. So my challenge is zoom out of every aspect of your life and look where there might be some opportunities to make some pivots. And they may not always work out, but it has a chance of improving your situation, or at least taking some stress off the table, or repositioning some things, whether it be personally or in business, that ultimately have a positive influence and impact on your life and those around you. So I challenge you all to do that. Zoom out, try to find areas to pivot, apply it. Don't be scared to do it. Don't be scared to swallow your pride, because it might be an idea that you implemented years ago and you're just scared to come off of it because it's your idea. Don't do that. That's the death of a lot of businesses and a lot of health, a lot of fitness, all of that stuff. So with that, I'm excited to keep bringing y'all these solo episodes. I'm excited to bring some powerful guests in here and have them share their expertise. I'm excited to keep giving my perspectives on different mindset nuggets. I hope that does help some folks out. The best thing I get is every week I get messages from folks that watch an episode, and a lot of times they're thanking me for some subtle things that weren't even a part of the episode. So I really enjoy that. And that inspires me to keep doing this. And I appreciate everybody that's been following along and supporting us and sharing and doing all that stuff. So with that, I'll wrap up another week of Burning the Ships Weekly Ramble, soon to be renamed. We'll let y'all know what that'll be shortly. And I hope y'all have a great week. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Burning the Ships podcast. As always, we want to thank our sponsor, 608B Capital. We are a short-term lending fund, a debt fund, open for investors who are looking for a passive return. And also we offer products to our main product to fix and flippers and buy and holders, folks that are doing things like that in real estate. Also want to remind you about our referral program. Check out our website for more information on that, and we're happy to talk to you further if you're interested. Again, thank you for joining us on Burning the Ships, and do me a favor and go out and try to find someone or some way that you can add value into the world today. Think through it, zoom out, and try to find where you can add value. I think it'll help wrap up your day, wrap up your week, whatever you're working on a positive note if you constantly think that way. Where can I add value? So with that, we thank you for joining us on another episode of Burning the Ships. Have a good one.